All right, Angelina, I feel like this is it's still to me like such a whirlwind that we get to chat right now about recapping your world championship experience because it feels like it was literally just yesterday that like
I
we're
know.
covering you and posting you about like competing at New Balance Nationals, and now here you are, I guess, going into your junior cross country season, coming off of your first U.S. senior like global championship team. But I'm sure this has all also been a whirlwind to you. But overall, I guess like has it felt like just time has flown by?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, people told me when I was a freshman, like going into my freshman year of college, like this is gonna go by way faster than you think it is, and they were so right. I cannot even believe that I'm in my junior year of college already. I just like feels like I was just a freshman. So yeah, it's definitely flown by, and then to even think just like back to cross country season. It's weird because it feels a little bit like a time warp. Like, I feel like that was so long ago, but the fact that we're already back into cross country is insane. And then I know just as fast as we're into cross country, we're just going to be right back into track. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely feels a little bit crazy, but all nothing to complain about. I mean, all good craziness and yeah, I mean nothing too crazy. So I've been very happy here. So
Yeah. All right. So let's before we dive into just sort of recapping Tokyo, the whole track season. Where are you at? I guess right now in terms of the people probably are wondering. It's like, did she have to like fly back and then immediately like jump back into class, practice for cross country season, like get a little bit of a break? Like, what is the last week or so been like for you? Because you're one of the few NCAA athletes who I guess has to have the shock of going back to normal college student life.
yeah, I mean the short answer is yes. That is kind of what I did. Hopped off the plane. Got I had about so I raced on Wednesday was my final. Coach Hennis and I had kind of chatted about taking just a few days to recover mentally and physically off the race. But then ultimately, after the weekend and after I came back, kind of just do some mileage. I am missing like one workout this week, but then kind of just getting right back into the swing of things. Which to some people could kind of be like, whoa, like give her a break. But honestly, this was completely my choice. Nothing's being forced. I 100% want to show up for my team, and I'm I'm ready. I'm fit. As I've said before, there's no reason why I can't compete. And to me, I've said it in the past, but I think if you're mentally on the right trajectory of being able to sustain training, then there's no reason that you can't keep it up. So I'm mentally and I'm physically where I need to be to hopefully gain some more success in cross country. So I'm I'm totally okay with coming back and getting back into the swing of things. So yeah.
All right, so let's essentially unpack the last year because I mean it does feel like you leveled up massively as an athlete, whether it was getting stronger. I mean one getting stronger, getting faster, and then just proving yourself like at these big stages. Where do you sort of pinpoint the moment in the last 12 months or so where you're just like, okay, we're
Like
making
the turning
progress.
point.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that you knew that you could handle, I think, a bit more and that you were in the right place as an athlete, both, like you said, physically and mentally to take on just sort of like the next step.
Yeah. I feel like I have a pretty clear like line in the sand of when that was. Um, I'd come off cross country. It was decent. It wasn't anything to write home about, but I showed up. I did my job. I as athletes we're always striving for better, so I wasn't super happy with how my cross season went, but it wasn't anything to complain about. But where I really saw the change for me was actually like at, I would say, one of my lowest points. I had been dealing with some Achilles tendonitis. Uh, I would say a relatively bad case of it. My Achilles was so swollen, and as most athletes, we just push forward because the the meat is more important than, our actual body. So, I raced at BU, and I ran 9:07 in the 3K, and that was pretty big for me. I was very excited, but then I had developed this Achilles tendonitis and kind of had to adjust my training a little bit. Started cross training a little bit more and just trying to rehab my Achilles as best as I could. So during that process, I really put my head down and kind of wasn't racing, really focusing on myself. And like I said, really changed up my training to where I really wasn't running a whole lot. I was doing a lot more cross train. And we were about a week out from ACC indoor, and I knew I was in good fitness just from cross training, but I didn't really know where I was fitness wise. And I ended up PRing in the 3K, and I ran 9 flat, and which sounds a little silly because my Steeple 3K PR is pretty close to that. But yeah, so ended up running that, and that was kind of where I started to see the shift of maybe we need to change things up to, change nothing, nothing changes. So I did switch up my training a little bit, uh, added a little bit more mileage, added a little bit more cross train, switched up my lifts, really just started to experiment a little bit with how I was actually training. And that's kind of where I saw the upswing and performance. And when I opened at Raleigh Relays for Steeplechase, that was kind of when I knew the ball was rolling. And, I was pretty confident in my trajectory at in that moment in March that I was going to be where I needed to be at the end of the season. That being said, I didn't know how far my season was going to take me, but, I was prepared to definitely show up at NCAAs.
Yeah, so what specifically was it in cross training and like the cross training methods that you found? I know for the most part a lot of people can dread it. It's like, all right, I don't want to be in the
Oh,
pool for that long. I don't want to be on the elliptical or the
preach,
arc trainer. But
preach.
for you, I guess what how did you mentally push through that, and then what worked for you?
Yeah, so I think on like the mental aspect, it was tough. Like it isn't. I joined running. I joined track and field to run. I didn't join it to be stuck on a bike or stuck on an elliptical. I like to run. I like to be outside. I like to be with my teammates. So yeah, it is tough. And there were moments, where I'm standing in front of the bike or I'm standing in front of the elliptical and I'm on the phone. I'd usually like call up my dad and be like, I can't do this. Like I'm almost in tears. Like I cannot force myself to do this. And like for me, what kind of pushed past the dread of doing that was, I've said this in the past, but like really remembering my why and remembering why I was showing up and why I was doing that and the ultimate result I wanted. And then like the concrete thing I always used to tell myself was like, I know I'm gonna do it. It's like I either stand here for 20 minutes and complain about getting on the elliptical, or I suck it up and I get on the elliptical and I put my head down and I do what I need to do. And I think that ultimately played a role into just running in general. As much as cross training sucks, it also makes you appreciate running a lot more. So, when I finally was able to switch a lot of my cross training back over into running, it gave me a lot more joy for the sport. And I think that's where I saw a lot of upswing and just having fun and overall like putting in even more work because I just enjoyed being out on the track. So that's kind of where I saw a lot of that swing mentally. And then kind of what worked for me physically, uh, like I said, I did elliptical and I do bike. I'm not a huge pool person. I know a lot of people gain a lot of fitness off of swimming, but in my opinion, if you're not a super strong swimmer, then I don't know. And I can swim, but I'm not a super strong swimmer, so I don't know how much I can actually push myself in the pool if that's not my forte. I'd rather, kind of grind it out on the bike or on the elliptical where I know my heart rate is going to be this or whatever, whatever, whatever. That being said, physically also, I never really went off of heart rate. I always went off of effort, because that's going to look different every day. If I'm coming off of a hard workout, I may be more tired, so it's my effort may feel a lot more or less, depending on what day I'm coming off of. So, and I think that was huge in the long run because it didn't put pressure towards the end of my season of I need my heart rate to be this to know that I'm fit. I kind of was like, I just need to push myself or, I can kind of naturally feel how I need to do my cross training to be as fit as I need to be. So, yeah.
All right, so then you get back to, training. I guess what were the gains that you also saw just sort of in general from let's start in like late March where you do start to rattle off like these PBs. Well, first off, I guess to start the year, right? I guess you're technically your PR in the steeple on January 1st, 2025 was what,
9:54.
9:54, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
then we jump all the way to 9:34 at Raleigh Relays. Then in Winston-Salem, you go 9:29. Then I guess this was ACCs, and then you go 9:27. So then after that, you got regionals, NCAAs, and then ultimately at the NCAA championships, you rattle off 9:16 for third place. So that was all
Yeah.
huge in that span of time, I guess. What were you seeing in training, both like I guess on the track and I guess a big component for you too has just sort of been like the weight room and making those gains there
Yeah.
that you knew, okay, we're making progress all throughout the season and like that's where you saw the potential for these PBs to come in such big chunks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that ultimately my freshman year, I ended with a 9:54, but I was never satisfied with a 9:54. I knew that I had more in the tank my freshman year. And this sounds like a little silly, but I knew that I could achieve a greater time, or I guess I could be faster than 9:54. But by the time we kind of got into the swing of regionals and NCAAs, I just wasn't fit enough to actually perform the way I knew I could perform. So that was disappointing my freshman year. So going into my sophomore year season, I wasn't naive to the fact that I could drop a significant amount of time off my steeple PB because I had believed the year prior that I could have run faster than that. So going into Raleigh relays, I really set a goal for myself. I wanted to run at least 9:40. That was our school record, and I wanted to show up for anybody who was coming out to watch the Wolfpack at our home meet. So just setting those goals early and knowing the leaps that I was going to have to make once I made them, it just seemed like the path was pretty clear of, gauging off of like how I felt during the race and where I can tweak little things. There were just a lot of little tweaks, just within a lot of learning, I guess, went on. Coach Hennis always likes to say, sometimes like you don't win or you lose, or wait, it's lose or you learn, or something like that. Whatever. What she likes to say is you can win and you can learn. So that's what I took into my season is I really tried to I was having a lot of forward momentum, and during that, I really tried to learn off of all of my races I did and see what I could do differently. And during the training of that, I kept my training very consistent and just I think worked through a lot of little mental battles that we all deal with of showing up and being tired or having to work out alone. That was my reality a lot this season, was working out alone, and not just working out, but working out hard and working out intense alone. And it is tough. There are a lot of moments where I had to put my head down and just kind of tough it out. But ultimately, at the end, it made me a better competitor, and it made those last final races where I did have to dig deep and did have to really play some mental games to get myself on the line and ready a lot easier, and set me up a lot better for what I needed to do.
Yeah, I guess like that was the one thing that I remember stood out from like your interviews coming through the mix zone at USA's was just sort of like handling the not caving under like the pressure. And so where did you feel like this pressure came from for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally for all athletes, we're always looking at our past selves. We're always looking at what's expected of us, and also just like being grateful for the fact that you're there. But it's all nice and fun to say, "Oh, I'm just grateful I'm here." But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, there's a reason you're there, and there's people expecting you to perform, and that doesn't scare me either. I really a lot of I don't I think some people it can sometimes tend to crash under that pressure of people are expecting this and I don't know how I'm supposed to perform. I like to take it as a challenge. When people expect me to perform, I take it as my job. I take it really seriously. And even going out to Paris, I wanted to prove not only that I was a, sub 9:16 runner, but I also wanted to prove the fact that I wasn't just some young person that just came on the scene and randomly had a good race. I wanted to show that I could get on a plane, d- handle a red eye flight, and show up the next day and race hard and race how I meant it because I deserved to be there. So that was big throughout my whole season actually. You know, to kind of alleviate some of that pressure would just be to say, uh, prove to myself that I'm a 9:20 runner, prove to myself that I'm a 9:30 runner, prove to myself that I'm a 9:15 runner. Don't just do it once, do it again. So I'm very proud of myself that I have been able to kind of curve that pressure to motivation and kind of help me throughout the season.
Yeah, I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit here and just say that I don't think that as many people are applying pressure on college sophomore to go out to the Diamond League and go crush it, but like you have found a way to minimize those moments and find success because I mean this is really funny and we're gonna be jumping around here a little bit because I do want to hear like what you've learned from some of these key races throughout the season, but I mean, it was like I think I ran into Nikki Hiltz in Tokyo, and they had told me about just sort of you seeing the stadium like for the first time, and Nikki had
I
said
know
something.
exactly what you're gonna say.
Yeah, well, so it was something about I think like oh my gosh, like wasn't incredible, like first team, like what'd you make of the atmosphere, 50,000 people, and you kind of were just like, huh, like that was nice, and like
Yeah.
I think that's been that, and now hearing you talk, it makes so much more sense. Just sort of how you have been able to not make the stage as big as it and bright as it could be to a lot of people, and that's helped you perform. So, kind of take me through just sort of like how you were able to do that, especially in Paris, where, like you said, like it was most people would be like, all right, post NCAAs, you get the invite to a Diamond League, and it's a good opportunity to chase a PR. But you clearly were just like, no, I wanted to get so much more out of that.
Yeah, I think that being said, I'm definitely grateful for every opportunity.
For
And
sure.
what you're referring to is, so what I had said was, yeah, it's a stadium. It's just a stadium. Like there's nothing too special about it. Like we've seen it before. Which is true, it is just a stadium. It's just a track. That being said, it's also really a really cool track, and so I think taking it in more of the aspect of, you know, this is awesome in the simple aspect of it, not thinking of it as there's eyes watching you, like this weight of like there's eyes, like look at how big it is, like how am I going to be able to perform, instead of just taking a step back and be like, oh my god, this is awesome, you know I get to be here, but at the end of the day, I hope to be back here, and I hope I can, I want to perform. So the big hoopla of everything else doesn't really matter if I can't perform the way I actually want to. Because at the end of the day, the stadium is awesome and cool, but if I don't walk out feeling satisfied and knowing that I put my all out there, I'm not going to be happy. So
No, I think that was the
I
thing. It was
put
like Nikki heard that response. It was like, oh yeah, like Angelina's gonna run really well.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think honestly, I've said this a bunch, but out of my whole season this year, my favorite event that I ran at was Paris. I have not been to an event ever like that before, and the crowd was absolutely insane, and the way to describe it was electric. It was exhilarating. Like I feed off of that energy in the best way. And I think that's the mental switch of being able to feed off of the energy in the stadium and the people around you instead of taking it as a negative. I think a lot of people sometimes tend to take those nerves as negative and anxiety, and it can be debilitating, honestly. I've seen it happen to a lot of runners and a lot of teammates, and it's upsetting for me to watch because, in my opinion, it's like I said, it's exhilarating. It's a fun experience, and to be able to look out in the crowd and see 3 rows of fans and drums on the other side, and amazing competitors by your side that are ready to, I mean, everyone's ready to rip each other's heads off. It's awesome. It's a you're like going into war, and I love that. So I think really being able to feed off of that energy instead of crumbling under that. And like I said, it's easier said than done. When you're on the stadium, and you have USA across your chest, and you have people looking at you, and you know if conditions weren't ideal or your lead up didn't feel good, all of that anxiety is on your chest. Something that I really took a lot of I took a lot of comfort in was knowing that I prepared. I set myself up as best as I could every single time I went out to race a very hard race. Whether it was true or not that I was actually set up perfectly with sleep, food, stress of school or anything like that is besides the fact. It's the fact that I knew that I showed up for myself every other day of my training. That's what I relied on. I knew that Monday through Saturday I showed up at the track or wherever we were, and I ran my hardest. I gave 110% at practice. So when I show up at the line and X, Y, and Z isn't in place, I know that I can rely on the fact that I did everything else before to prepare for this. And it doesn't really matter if those things are in place or not because I am in shape and I am prepared. So I did really rely on that in those big arenas and those big competitions. I definitely relied on the confidence that I had done everything I could and I left no stone unturned. So,
Yeah. I feel like you'd appreciate this as a New Yorker because like I think about this all the time as a diehard Yankee fan is just how they talk about certain athletes where they're just sort of like, oh, that person's not cut out to play in New York because they wouldn't be able to handle like the bright lights or the moment. And they say that just sort of about,
yeah.
like with athletes sometimes. And I'm like here listening to you and I'm thinking it's like, oh, I mean like Angelina's so cut out to just compete at any sort of big meet if she's just able to kind of mentally like frame things in the way that you just described. And so it's very cool. And so, all right, let's get into just a couple of those key races and what you
Yeah.
learned because it does feel like when we look at just kind of the course of your season, you took things from one performance to the next and then like they each just compounded on one another. So let's go kind of chronologically. Third place at the NCAA championships in 916. What did you learn
Yeah.
from there that then you took and applied to going out to Paris just 6 days later and then running 910 for a PB and finishing seventh in a Diamond League race, you know, in also into the lead up for USA's.
Yeah. NCAAs was huge, a huge learning process of knowing how to gauge where I needed to be in the race with people faster than me. I'm not naive to the people that are in the race with me. I think that's big. I know my competition. I do my research. I don't show up empty handed. I know exactly who's on the line with me and I know the times and I know where I need to be. So going into the NCAA final was a little bit stressful because obviously you have Doris and Lexi up there, gunning for a little bit faster times than I'd like to say were necessarily in my wheelhouse. Not saying that I wasn't, I mean, I showed up on the line ready to take first place. That's always the goal, showing up. I was actually asked in an interview at my semifinal if it was going to be a race for second place at NCAAs, and that was actually very irritating to me because I don't think that you should ever count yourself out of a race, especially in the steeplechase. We have seen at the Worlds, we saw a bunch of people go down, and you never know if they're going to get back up. It doesn't matter if they're ranked first in the world or, wherever in the middle of the pack. So I think that always you're lining up to race your best and to place first. That being said, you also can't go in naive to your fitness and where you're at. So, I was very mindful at NCAAs to kind of run a smart race. I told coach that I wanted to race smart and tough, not dumb and tough. I don't need to prove that I'm fit. I don't need to prove that I can run with the big dogs for 1K. Everybody knows that you could run a sub 3 minute K in the steeplechase. Everybody on the line can do that. I don't need to prove that I can do that. I would rather prove to the fact that I can PR and place as high as I can. So that was kind of the goal, is race smart. And, gauging off of those two women really benefited me going into Paris, entering a field where I was ranked, on the lower end of the times. So being able to do that really helped me overall gain on people in the actual race. People would go out and I knew that I had been smart in the front half of the race so that I could really show off what I wanted to show off in the back end of the race and kind of catch people and really get that forward momentum. And I'm sure, a lot of runners know, once you kind of pass one person that last K, or you're on a roll, you feel the pull of just wanting to keep going and keep turning over. So I really took that into account at NCAAs, of that feeling of that forward momentum towards the back end of the race, of catching people instead of going out way too hard and kind of feeling a pullback. So really really learning what actual forward momentum felt like, and actual pacing, I think really benefited me in Paris as well. And then obviously in Paris, I don't think that I would have ever been prepared for the race I just raced at Worlds if I didn't go out to Paris. That really, really just sculpted the framework of what Worlds was going to be like, what travel was going to be like, what food was going to be like, what, staying with your competitor was going to be like, just everything like that. And it was all just such a great experience. That's what I keep saying. People ask me how it was. I was like, it was an experience. It was something that there were a lot of ups and there were a few downs, but overall, there was a lot of learning and a lot of growth. And I'm really proud to come back, and have successfully been adaptive and been flexible during all of those ups and downs. And I think overall, just touching briefly on my USA's race, I think all of those races before NCAAs, the semifinal of NCAAs, the final, and Paris, all collectively led me to a successful final at USA's, because
That was a crazy
you know
race.
it was crazy. I mean, there's nothing too much to say. I mean, it was competitive. There were a lot of women there, and again, staying calm, cool, and relaxed under pressure was the goal. And I tried to smile as best I could through every opportunity I could, because that keeps me relaxed and it keeps it fun for me. It lets me know that I'm fit and that I'm where I need to be if I can still smile. So
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's so cool to just sort of hear just like all the pieces that ultimately lead to this success at the World Championships. Because it's like, yeah, I mean, like in Paris, that was your first look at Faith Trowdich, Paris Chamutai, and like these world class names where
yeah,
on the pro circuit and a lot of the top names that people looked at on the, ahead of the U.S. Championships, people looked at the race at the pre-classic as like, oh, that's like the preview of how the women's steeplechase will shake out at the U.S. Championships. And we got to remember, it's like you weren't there. Like you, I think, like post Paris, were just kind of locked in on training
yeah.
and getting ready for USA's. What happened, I guess, in that month span? You didn't race, so like, what happened in that span of time that I guess allowed you to, meet that level of preparation that
Yep.
fitness wise like showed up at the US Championships?
Yeah. I think after Paris, there was, well, prior to NCAAs and even prior to Paris, I had gotten on the line, or we had thought about USA's, and I was just gonna be happy to be there and show up and try to race. Uh, Priority definitely switched after Paris. I remember after Paris, uh, I took a little bit to reflect off of my season and really be proud of myself and take a lot of pride in what I had done and all the work I'd put in. But ultimately, I told my dad, I said, I'm making that team. I'm gonna do that. it wasn't a question in my head if I was going to do it. I was making the team. And everybody around me kept saying, like, you only got to get like you just got to get third. And I told them, I said, why can't I win? You know what I mean? Like, again, just why pigeonhole at third? And I think gunning for the win was what got me second. Uh, so overall, leading up into that race, taking it back a little bit. So coach and I kind of, obviously we had a little bit of a blueprint for what led me into Paris and what led me into NCAAs. So we kind of just ran back that training plan and had those workouts. I was very mindful throughout the process to not compare and look back on what the workouts had looked like before. And, because it's easy to get wrapped up in, well, we did this workout and this was the pace I was at and I need to be faster or yada, yada, yada. Because I was fit then and, I'd like to keep the same fitness now. So I trusted coach that she was giving me faster times or that she was giving me splits that she thought that I could handle. And she did. And I'd say the one thing that really, sparked a lot of forward momentum going into USA's was, although I didn't race, I was able to do a time trial. And I actually did it at my home track. And my boyfriend, Luke Wiley, who's also on the NC State team, he paced me for a 1500. And I told my best friend, who actually went to Tokyo to watch me, my best friend, my mom, my dad, my high school coach, everybody came out to support me. And I ended up throwing down a pretty good time, you know, just by myself. I didn't need to tell anybody. I texted coach the time I ran, and she was like, "You're ready." And
All right, I got to hear what was the time?
yeah, I ran 4:09, so I was pretty happy with that. Considering I was by myself and
Your technical PR is 4:13, right? Yeah.
yeah. So running a PR off of yeah, I mean, the last time I raced was at Penn Relay. So, I knew that if I had hit a PR in the 1500, compared to, a little bit ago in my last training block running a 4:13, I knew that I was in shape to run something better or at least match what I needed to run. So I was ready to roll at that point. And, like I said, the physical preparation was there. And I was really lucky for the mental aspect of that. I've said this a million times, but I really can't express how much of a support system I had around me, with my brothers, my mom, my dad, all the support of my entire community. I mean, I couldn't go anywhere without people wishing me good luck and saying congratulations, and it was awesome. I mean, even at Worlds, there were so many watch parties and so much support. Obviously, my boyfriend and my teammates and my coaches, everyone was so supportive. And I truly don't think I realized, especially like a special shout out to my parents. I don't think I realized how much I really rely on them. Just to say like, hey, you're good. Like, just breathe, do what you got to do. And I really realized that actually in this past training block, again, going from USA's to Worlds, where I was actually at college and not at home. I actually had asked them, they had come down the weekend before I went to Tokyo just so I could see them, and just kind of chat and catch up. Because I really do rely on family and, they keep you sane and they hype you up. My parents are my ultimate hype people and my whole family is. So, going into a big race, you always want those people around you. So, going into USA's, having them there and having them support me was, I think, almost just as important as the physical. Like I've said, I'm going into cross country right now because I'm physically or I'm mentally where I need to be, not necessarily because I'm physically where I need to be. I am luckily physically where I need to be too, but like I said, I'm way more concerned about making sure I'm mentally where I need to be, and that is attributed completely to the support system I have around me. So
It's really special what you've got, and it shows just sort of like with the success you've been able to display for them, and I guess like at each one of these big races. So then as we go, USA's to Worlds. Okay, you make the team, you finish second. Now it's sort of like, all right, if back in January and at probably at the times when you were on the elliptical, you probably couldn't have
yeah,
envisioned like that this was where your season was going to end. So getting to Tokyo, preparing for the heat and humidity, seeing kind of like these races before you go wacky, I would say. It was sort of like things were slow. There's tons of surprises happening left and right, all throughout the meet. What are you
yeah.
thinking, before it's your turn to get to race?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll take you back to like the semifinal, honestly. Uh, I feel as though I relax, and I'm sure a lot of other people. I talked to Lexi, was my roommate, so I chatted with her about this after the semifinal. We got back to the hotel room and we were like, "Oh my God, I am so glad that is over. Like we just get to have fun now." Um, but yeah, I mean, getting through the semifinal is the stressful part. The final is the fun. Final is showcase what you can do, and it's all out there. You are not hiding behind anybody. You're not hiding behind any training. You get to lace up your spikes and go pedal. Hammer down. Um, but the semifinal, it's a little bit. There's some games in the semifinal, and um, you know, watching the men's steeple, we saw a lot of people go down, and that was that's a little bit. I think men's steeple and women's steeple is raced very differently. I like to think that a lot of women's steeple races are raced very honest. Um, I wouldn't say there's a whole lot of games. Usually if people think they can take it, they're going to take it because it's more risky to not in steeple. So the semifinal, I watched Lexi qualify, and that was huge. That gave me a lot of motivation to continue the train. And my going into the semifinal, the one goal was be in striking distance of fourth place at all times. Five people made it from each heat, but fourth place was where you wanted to be at because fourth place was safe. Uh, like I said earlier about not being naive to knowing who is in my race, I lined up again, knowing who is in my race, knowing where I needed to be. Knowing those three spots would probably be taken a little bit more easily, left me to having fourth and fifth place really to kind of like make my moves in within there. So, that semifinal was tough. My heat had gone out slow, and I mean, it's tough. I felt really good through 2K, and then you kind of hit that last K, and you're kind of going for it. Those last two laps are a grind, and especially the last lap, I'm digging deep to really, you know, be where I need to be at, and that can kind of affect your legs a little bit going into the final. But as I said, we've trained for this. Yeah, I ran, a 9:18. That's a good effort for me, considering, my PB is 9:10. So, I again wasn't naive to the fact that there were fast people in the race, and that I may be a little bit fatigued, but I did everything possible to recover for the final and know that I was fit and know that I was trained. So I kind of let those thoughts sit on the back burner. And that was about being adaptive and flexible. That's exactly what it was about. Knowing that it was going to be tough, knowing the semifinal was going to be tough because you're racing against the best women in the world, but also knowing that you deserve to be there and that you can show up just as well as they can. So going into the final, it was a race. It was split up. People making jokes. It was split up pretty evenly. At like pretty quickly. In the steeple race, and I think that was a smart move for me. I knew that I wasn't gonna go out in a sub 3 minute K. That just wasn't attainable for where I think I needed to be to close how I needed to at the end of the race. And ultimately, I'm really glad and proud of my decision, game time decision in the middle of the race to, kind of take that lead pack or the chase pack and run at the front of that and see what I could do there instead of going outside of my capabilities in the moment to prove something that probably wouldn't lead me down a good path. So, yeah, I mean, it was an awesome race. I was so happy to make the final, and the goal going in there was to be the first American across the line, and was to obviously everybody wants the PR and wants the time, but that's what's cool about championship racing is it really isn't about that. We walked out. It was hot. It was really hot for our race. There was definitely a haze over the stadium, but everybody's going through that. Everybody on the line is there to race the same race in the same conditions. So again, putting those thoughts on the back burner and showing up for the 9 more minutes I had to race. That was what I told myself, show up for everybody who's watching you, show up for 9 more minutes, put your all out there. And, my biggest thing during that final race is there's always a little bit of doubt in the middle of the race, where you're running and you kind of are like, oh, like people would probably be like satisfied if I got this place. Like this is good enough, like I'm tired. I don't really need to like push myself that much more. I knew that thought was going to pop into my head, and I told myself before the race, when that thought happens, I actually am going to make a move and I'm going to push myself a little bit more because I'm actually irritated that I'm thinking like that. So, yeah, that thought popped up in my head and I was like, you know what? Not today. And that was kind of when I made the move to the front of that chase pack, and started, kind of trying to put myself in the position of gaining on the people in front of me, and ultimately led me to the result I was ultimately looking for. So,
Yeah, I mean it's very impressive, just kind of like how calculated you are with so many of these moves within the race. Because yeah, I mean for so many people, I guess like myself, like I looked at this team and I was like, it's a young U.S. team, like making the final,
yeah.
big, just sort of like accomplishment for Team USA, because it's everyone's first time on this stage, and you're like, no, you know what? Like, yes, there's going to end up being a race within the race, and the East Africans, they took off and they were up. It was a split, there was 2 races happening at the same time at the track.
Yes, very much.
And also, you weren't just sort of like, all right, today's the day I'm going to break 9 minutes. Being realistic in that sense of just knowing where your fitness was, that like you walk away from this race like very fulfilled. Like, I want to know what's kind of like. There's that photo, I guess, that the NC State account like posted where you're just kind of like pointing at the finish line. It's very
Yeah.
gladiator-esque, but like,
Yeah.
what was the feeling, I guess, crossing the finish line?
Yeah, like I said, I had a lot of confidence in myself. I never thought, I mean, we say like not being naive to my capabilities. Um, I also am I like to be a little bit unrealistic with how I think, and not even unrealistic, but like realistically unrealistic, you know? I didn't go into that race saying, I can't break nine flat or like I can't do X, Y, and Z. I went into that race 100%, uh, you know, knowing that I needed to race as hard as I can and that I could achieve any goal that I wanted to achieve. I told Coach Hennis right before I got on the bus to go to the competition track. I said, I'm gonna be first. I'm gonna be the first American across the line. I'm gonna do that. And saying those words out loud confidently, proved to myself that I could actually do that. And so what was the initial question? I'm blanking.
It's just sort of just like what were like the feelings, I guess, crossing the finish line when it came to just like
Oh,
your feelings of
yeah.
like fulfillment
So
from this one.
yes. So where I was going with that was, so like saying that confidently before the race is a bold move, because there's opportunity to not show up and not be the first American across the line, and if I didn't do that, there would be a little bit of disappointment. So to say that out loud means that it's cement. Like if I don't do this, there's people know, my goal's out there. Coach knows that that was my goal, and if I don't achieve it, she knows that I'm not going to be as happy as I wanted to be, or I'm not going to be as satisfied as I wanted to be. Uh, that being said, crossing the line and achieving those goals and kind of having a moment to just take a deep breath and be like, "Oh my God, I act like I did it. Like I said I was going to do it and I did it." That picture is actually me pointing to my parents who were in the crowd, right? They literally had like seats right there, and they were holding an American flag with my brothers and my best friend. And like immediately crossed the line and pointed straight out to them because, as I stated before, they're a huge reason as to why I was able to show up, not only there, but at USA's, at NCAAs, at Paris. They're the reason I was there. And recognizing that very quickly off of such a huge, recognizing that almost as soon as I crossed the line, knowing that the reason I'm there is obviously because of my hard work and everything like that, but ultimately because of the people that surrounded me. That was why I pointed to them, was because you know I have a lot of pride in them as well. As much as I'm sure they take a lot of pride in what I do, I take a lot of pride in what they've done for me. So I really recognize that, and post race feeling is always the best, and being able to finally take a deep breath and uh, just be able to reflect off of a great season and finally put the final cherry on top of a million cherries that have been on top of my season. Thankfully, uh, yeah, was truly just an amazing feeling. So, yeah, very grateful and just reflecting a lot right now off of just what a crazy experience this has all been.
Yeah, no, it really has been. And I feel like when people hear this, you're going to win over so many fans and like just have so many more people to just also join that support crew because I guess like you're so young, like you're 20 years old, like you don't turn 21 until next March,
Yeah.
and I feel like there's just so much more special moments on the horizon where you haven't been shy in the past to talk about, like, yeah, I mean, like 9 minutes, like that could be a goal in the future,
Oh
right?
yeah.
There's a chunk of time to take off there, but like it's possible. You're making like these big jumps already, and then in addition to that, this experience of competing at the world championships for the first time, like we just saw how much you bottled up from Paris to be valuable at races like USA's and Worlds, that it's like, okay, now we have this big chunk of world championship experience. Like the next go at it, in Beijing in 2 years, like who's to say that you can't get back into being in the medal conversation for the United States? Like we were
Yeah.
spoiled for so many years having Emma Coburn and Courtney Frerichs being like the faces of athletes in contention for the medals, and I feel like that's what made this event so exciting for Americans. And then once there's that bit of a drop off and rebuild, for sure, like it's like, okay, it feel like in Tokyo, it felt like the medals were decided in that first K, right? Like you see the
Yeah.
pack that's up there, and now it'll be more fun, especially in the lead up to a home Olympics in LA. That like, hey, like by then you're gonna be very much like in your prime, or not even in your prime. You'll still be super young for LA Olympics, but up there potentially with a lot of those athletes to bring the U.S. back into the conversation. Like, do you allow yourself to daydream because of how fast and how much progress you saw this year? That like, all right, like those things could seem possible in 26, 28, 27, 28.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even say like I allow myself to daydream. Like I think about it all the time. That is at the forefront of my mind. And I have no doubt that we will like our steeplechase women in the US will be back very, very shortly.
And then it's been fun to just also hear you because like you've mentioned a couple times like I told Coach Hennis this, and I said this, and I'm like, for Coach Hennis, like it's just drawing up the workouts, but I think like on the mental side of things, like you got it down pat, and like you're probably like one of the easiest athletes to coach in that sense.
Um, I do. Well, I mean, yeah, I hope I am. You know, my dad has always told me, be an easy athlete to coach, and don't be high maintenance. And I mean, this is like a little. I guess this is a little like tidbit advice for like any athletes going into college or going to college running or anything like that. Like that would be my biggest advice is don't be high maintenance. No coach likes an athlete that can't be coached or thinks they know better or can't be open to conversation. I that being said, like I definitely disagree sometimes with things that go on. I voice my opinion, but I'm always open to listen and I'm always open to compromise and kind of work through that. I like to be able to be the athlete that my coach can give me a workout, I can do it, and I can text her back and say, workout went good, move on, we're done. We don't have to go through the litany of a million other issues that went on. I take a lot of pride in that, in being committed and being able to put my head down and get my job done. There are a lot of days where, there are days where it's a put your head down and just get in and get out type of days. And then there are days where, you get to actually kind of have a little bit more fun and kind of like feel a little bit more emotion towards what you're doing on the track. But, the days that you want to have a little bit more emotion, negative emotion, those are the days that you have to tell yourself, just put your head down, get the job done, and leave. And there have been days that I've had to do that. But ultimately, like I said, I think that it ends up working out to where it actually benefits me in the future because I'm able in tough moments to put my head down and get the job done and get in and get out. Instead of dwelling on all the whatever that's going on in my brain, I'm able to put it on the back burner as best I can. Even though I may still feel it, try my best to put it in the back of my head and just get the job done. That's what I'm here for, get the job done and do what I need to do. And then it's also really fun when you are feeling good and when you're having an on day and you get to kind of smile through the workout and kind of have fun and give a little bit more energy because you're feeling good. They're both important. But yeah, I mean, as I stated, I do take a lot of pride in being a coachable athlete, I hope, and being able to show up when I need to show up.
All right, so I know you probably treated Tokyo as a bit of a business trip, right? Like getting the job done and putting your head down and putting in the work. Mission
Yeah.
accomplished in terms of being the top American, finishing ninth in the world, amazing showing. But I want to hear, I guess, like most fun part, and I guess like what did you? Because the funny thing is like they gave people what like 2 days after their event ended, and then it's kind of like kicking you out of the
So
hotel.
quick, so
Yeah.
quick. I had one day to kind of like do what, like
Yeah, it's like, oh,
explore a little
everyone's doing
bit.
the 7-Eleven halls and like all this kind of stuff. And
Yeah,
it's like, I got to cram this into one day, go
one
out,
day,
try new
yeah.
food. So, of the Tokyo experience and your limited time to have fun, like, what did you do and what did you take back?
Yeah. So what I did on my day, my family is like obsessed with like seeing animals of all sorts. Like when I was in Oregon, like before USA's, my mom found this like goat farm in somebody's backyard. Like literally somebody's backyard. We went and saw goats before I raced because she just thinks it's beneficial. So on the day after my race, we went to like the biggest zoo, I think. So we went to the zoo. I saw pandas. I saw like all giraffes, all of it. And then we got to go around and see the little shops, and we got like just like traditional Japanese food, like dumplings and those like big like I don't even know. They're like dough. They're very traditional, but
Okay.
very good. And I got ramen, and then what did I? Oh, the thing I did actually before my final, the day I should have been resting, but I needed to get out of the hotel, and my my parents brought myself and my brothers and my friend to, it's like this anime world, like trinkets up the wazoo of like random things, like the labubus and the everything
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And like I'm not even into that stuff, but like just looking around was just so cool, and just seeing the like just the culture in general, like everything's so clean, and it was really unique. And the my favorite, I will say, my favorite meal I had was we went like we found this place. You had to like go downstairs. This is how you knew it was going to be good, because we went into a basement. They only served one thing. So they served this like wagyu, and it was like wagyu steak with cabbage, miso soup, rice with like fish eggs, and like some other thing, and you had to like cook the steak on these little um like grills essentially.
Yeah.
And it was so good. It was so good. Um and then yeah, I bought some. I actually have some stuff right here. It's just sitting on my floor. But I'll show. I bought like all these Kit Kats. I
Oh yeah,
bought like
my first trip to Tokyo, I spent like $120 on Kit Kats, where it's just like all the
yes.
flavors we can't get. Yeah, exactly. So I
Yeah,
did
I
what you
bought
did.
these ones, these strawberry ones, these look very good. Had to buy the matcha ones.
Of course.
Um, and then these, I was like, these look really good. I can't not get them.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, I got like a bunch of different like fun little like snacks and stuff like that. Actually, this is kind of interesting. I got like fish jerky.
Oh wow. Okay.
I know. I'm so eager to try. But yeah, so that was like outside of the race what I did and what I bought, little haul. But yeah. So it was all in all, it was incredible. Such a
Yeah.
cool experience. Just so grateful to have had it, and my eyes are open to, how world championships are run, and honestly also how well we have it in the NCAA
Yeah.
when we compete. Uh, I'm very grateful to all of our staff and everybody that makes competition in the NCAA fairly smooth. So,
Yeah.
yeah, very gained a lot of perspective off of that.
Yeah. No, it was an awesome experience. And you know also too. It's just like Tokyo just felt like it was New York City copy and pasted like on itself.
Yes,
So many people.
yes,
I mean,
it
everyone's
did.
polite. They could
So
never be New
polite,
York.
so
Like
polite.
as much as I love this city and just being from here, I was just like we could take a page or two from
Uh
people when it
huh.
comes to just sort of the culture out there. But yeah, no,
Well,
it was
and
it was awesome.
yeah, and this is just a side piece, but like we were trying to figure out like why is everybody just so nice here? Like how is this like everyone's so patient, you know what I mean? Like at the crosswalks, like everyone's just like you can walk across, but like if it's red hand, like nobody's
Nope.
crossing. No, nobody's crossing. Um and we came to the this is what we think is we were told the Japanese are very on time. Everything's like very regimented, like be on time to everything. Don't be late. Actually, like be 10
Be
minutes
early.
early.
Yeah.
Yeah, be early. So, we kind of came to the assumption that it's like everybody's on time. So nobody's ever in a rush. So nobody's ever impatient. So people have time to wait for someone at the crosswalk and not be like, oh my God, walk faster. You know what I mean? Versus like in New York, we're always late, we're always rushing, we're always trying to get to the place the
Yep.
fastest or, whatever. So it makes us a little bit more rushed and probably a little bit more mean. I definitely contribute to that culture, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I feel like that was kind of like what we tried to, or that's what we like chalked it up to
Yeah.
was why everyone was so nice.
Oh
But
man.
yeah,
Now you got your taste, and you're like, I guess I got to make more world teams to be able to go explore the world and hit Beijing. I guess LA will just be a home Olympics, but then from there, I'm sure they'll choose some cool spots to go to. And this will, yes, you still have school, but then very soon could be your job. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean LA is a world in itself, so it'll be cool. Hopefully going out there and or just even being in the talks to make that team is pretty awesome. So I'm super stoked for that.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to continue to follow along in all of your success. Angelina, congratulations on an amazing 2025 outdoor track season. And it's so
Thank you so
crazy that
much.
you're diving right into cross country season. And so we'll see you excel in that as well. But thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, oh my God, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.